Welcome everybody to, this is my third town hall meeting in my tenure as your member representative to Congress. It's really been an honor to serve in the 112th Congress, Congress I think most people look at as a rather significant time in our country and a rather significant Congress. I am part of a very large freshman class, one of the largest that we've had in recent history. We've got almost 100 new freshmen, and it certainly has changed things in Washington, at least in the House of Representatives. We have taken on a lot of different particular issues, and there are a lot more issues that we are going to be taking up when I return next week. I think May, June, and July are going to be rather significant months for decisions on behalf of our country, our state, and in terms of what direction we plan on going. I want to talk a little bit in my opening remarks about how my first few months have gone, and then I'd like to open it up and try to get as many questions answered as I possibly can as you take the time out of your day to come and chat with me. First, I think it's very important for me to be engaging with my constituents, making sure that I'm listening to you and try to do my best to reflect and represent the needs that you have for New Hampshire and for the nation. And that is not always going to be an easy circumstance because we've got challenging times and challenging issues, and we've got many different variables about how we want to try to solve our nation's problems. But I do offer this. I think it's time in our country where we try to look past political labels and work with anybody, regardless of party affiliation, to have results for the nation. These are certainly difficult times and trying times, but I'm very optimistic that we can, in a collegial and respectful way, try to solve the problems that we see. And I want to take ideas from all people and try to do my best to reflect those values and those needs in Washington. And while we may not always agree on every single item, I'm going to do my very best to reflect what you'd like me to do in Washington. And that includes looking at people, regardless of that party affiliation label, and say, let's work together. Let's try to find results for New Hampshire, for our country. One of the things that our delegation, myself, Charlie Bass, Kelly Ayotte, and Jean Shaheen do is meet on a monthly basis, try to find the common ground issues that we all feel are reflective of all of us and hopeful of New Hampshire. Maybe in recent weeks you've noticed that the Great Day issue has been coming to a bit of a head. I had the fortune to meet with the EPA, to meet with the towns that are mostly affected by the decision that the EPA is wanting to make, and as a result of listening to both sides, I've stated many times the right to try to find areas of agreement between the EPA and the community so we can keep Great Day pristine and clean, but do it in a financially responsible way. And I filed legislation about a week and a half ago called the Great Day Community Protection Act, which essentially asks for, through a legislative initiative, for a 5-year window for all the contiguous communities to have additional time to study the science, the research that has already been done on both sides, and try to come up with a reasonable plan. This is at the request of the contiguous communities who said, of course we want to clean up Great Bay. We protect it and want to continue to do that. But we also are going to be very mindful of the cost associated here in Exeter. That would be an estimated cost of about $52 million if the EPA mandates were implemented. So I did file the legislation. I'm very pleased to see Governor Lynch, Senator Shaheen, and as well as Senator Ayotte now support this initiative. We are working collectively and collaboratively on behalf of local communities right here in New Hampshire. And I think it proves a point that we can work together and look beyond our party affiliations. Look at each other as Americans first, and Granite Staters, and try to figure out what are the best ways and best solutions that we can help, and we can guide this country. I believe that there are other bipartisan ways in which we can properly represent New Hampshire and the country. There's so many different debates about budget, health care, tax policy, regulatory policy. But I was pleased that we had bipartisan support for repealing the 1099 provision in the House, passed the Senate, and it was signed into law by the President of the United States. So we sent a great, strong message in a bipartisan way to job creators, business owners here in New Hampshire and the country, that we're going to try to be more effective and efficient as a federal government. And these are not always the stories that you hear about what's going on in Washington. When you turn on your TV at night, you'll see both sides of the aisle sometimes having a very spirited debate about how we're going to move forward as a country. But let's not forget that we have an opportunity here to have a results-driven, fact-based conversation with the country. Now, I believe that each and every one of you, and everyone in this country, deserves to know the truth about where we are in this nation. Fiscally, tax policy, regulatory policy, and then try to make the best decisions to make improvements. How many people in this room feel that their parents, who are the last generation, passed off a good, strong nation? You can raise your hand. How many of you think that, given the circumstance we're in today, we can pass off a better country to the next generation? So there is some optimism in this room. That's great. But the challenges that we have are extremely significant. Morgan and I have 2 kids, they're 7 and 6, and I think quite a bit about what we're going to do policy-wise to ensure that this is a better nation for them, that they have better opportunities than I have and my siblings have. And I think we all owe that to the country, to the future of the country, as Americans. So the first 3 months of my tenure, I've learned a lot in Washington. I certainly think it works a little bit differently than how municipalities work, or home budgets work, or small business owners' budgets. And there are reforms that I think we're going to continue to try to implement, in addition to trying to improve different policy initiatives that we're working on. There has been a lot of discussion about spending levels in this nation. I personally believe that we need to try to reduce the spending levels that we have. We're at about $3.7 trillion in spending, and we have right now $2.2 trillion in revenue. I don't think our home budgets or our business budgets or our municipal budgets show those same balance sheets. So most people I talk to say, yes, I agree with you when you say we ought to have balanced budgets. Most people that I talk to tell me I don't support the notion of long-term deficit spending. So what I will try to do is continue to find ways to be more effective and efficient with taxpayer dollars, be about good government, effective government, bring our budget back into balance, try to prioritize our budget and determine what it is that you here in New Hampshire and across the country people would like to see in terms of those priority levels. And then make sure we do everything we can to implement those priority levels. It's been a real honor to serve you. I do, as the Senator mentioned, I'm fortunate to be back every weekend. Usually our schedule is on either around Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday. So you're back typically for 3 days. And then once every 4 to 5 weeks, we have a district work period where we're back in district for a full week, where I get an opportunity to meet with as many people as I can. I visit businesses, I visit schools, have forums like this, to try to get a feel for the pulse of what's going on, and what you would like to see, again, reflected. Believe me, things change on a month-to-month basis. So I'm encouraged by the number of people who are here. I'd like to hear all of your ideas. And the only thing that I ask is that there's difference of opinion amongst us here. Let's be respectful of everybody and respect someone else's opinion, even if we disagree with it. It's part of what I think is the great thing about our country. We can come together and try to find the best solutions, the best ways in which to try to represent you. So with that, I will open it up to the first question. And I think we're going to have Dave try to just ask for your name and your issue, and you can just go up to a mic and ask, and I'll try to answer your questions the best I can.
The first question is from DWR Patton from Hampton. If you could raise your hand, it's with regard to the Great Bay issue.
Well, actually, I've changed my question. My question has to do with Paul Ryan's Medicare plan.
The Medicare plan will end Medicare as we know it. Republicans will tell us that it preserves Medicare, that it protects Medicare. It does not. It gives us $6,000. I'm 73 years old. How far do you think that's going to go when I try to get insurance from an insurance company? If I spend more than that, I'm on my own. No help from the government at all. There's a block grants are going to the states. People say block grants, Medicaid, is for poor people. My mother-in-law was an upper middle class woman who went into a nursing home. In very few years, all of her money was gone and she was on Medicaid. A lot of us face that. Why, Congressman Guinta, why in the world did you ever vote for the Paul Ryan Medicare plan?
Okay, so there are a couple of points to your question. First, I think you said that you're 73 years old, if I heard you correctly, and that this plan ends Medicare as we know it, and it provides $7,800 in support. Did you say 6,000 or 78? 6,000, okay. First, the plan that Paul Ryan put together that was passed in the House actually does not affect anybody who is 55 years of age. I'd be happy to answer. I'd be happy to answer the question. But again, I'd love to have
What about me? I'm 14. What am I going to get?
I'd like to have a very thoughtful discussion about the issues that we're facing. So let me tell you exactly what the plan does. Again, if you are 55 years or older, there is not one change to your Medicaid or Medicare benefit. So if the plan was actually put into effect, agreed to by the Senate and the President, you would not be affected one iota. Secondly, for Medicare, it actually doesn't provide $6,000, it provides a government program where you have choices that you get $15,000 to choose for the program that you would like for you as an individual. Now, this actually doesn't start until about 2021. So again, anyone who's 55 is grandfathered, nothing changes. And here's the reason that we all have to do something about Medicaid and Medicare. And there's agreement on the fact that the program as it stands today is not financially sustainable. And there's broad agreement amongst Republicans and Democrats in Washington that we've got to do something. The President, within the last 10 days, made statements about the same thing, saying we've got to do something to preserve and protect these programs. And the goal here is not to eliminate it, but to preserve and protect it for the long term. And I think that's important. I think it's important for you, as someone who is expected and anticipated to receive that benefit. I think it's important for those who are either my age or my kids' age. But I think we also ought to be responsible about the cost associated with it and where those dollars are going to come from. We're talking about a roughly $60 trillion unfunded liability with annual revenues of $2.2 trillion. This is a tough issue. And I sympathize with anyone who is reliant on a program like this or who expects to be on a program like this. Because a lot of us have actually planned for that. I'm very mindful of that. And my goal and my objective is to make sure that if you're in or near retirement, nothing changes because the country has made a promise to you. And I think we ought to honor that promise.
When you're looking for
We've got a next question is from Dan Starr from Manchester with regard to restrict growth of IRS. Did Dan Starr raise his hand?